Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Procrastinator's Pit Stop. I am sitting here with another amazing guest for you today. We are sitting with Mike Wood. Mike overcame over 30 years of anxiety and depression through deep emotional healing and mindset transformation to build a joyful life, and he now guides others on that same journey with his 10-week Learn to Love Being You program. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for being here. We have a lot of interesting ground to cover, but before we do dive into it, we do like to have an icebreaker on the show. And the question for you today is, which cartoon character do you resonate with the most, and why?
I guess I had to go with Rafiki from The Lion King. He makes me laugh, and he's always filled with some insightful wisdom that always hits home. And so I've always been a big fan of Rafiki.
I like that one. I think you're the first person who's ever said that, so I definitely like that one. I like the reference to the Lion King. I don't think anyone's ever said any character from the Lion King, as far as I recall. So I definitely like that one.
Uh,
Now, sliding gently into the topic here.
Okay.
How would you define procrastination and what does it mean to you personally?
Procrastination for me, I've definitely dealt with procrastination. And for me personally, at this point in my life, I think it's something that is uh, akin to really what my program is trying to unlock is, I think we have goals and consciously we say, hey, we want to do this or we want to do that or we want to work out. But then subconsciously we have past trauma, past pain, old core beliefs that no longer serve us that push us in other directions, that tells us to stop. I'm a big fan of the Navy SEALs box breathing. And the Navy SEALs is a very difficult thing to get through. They have about a 2.5% success rate. And they they interviewed hundreds or really all of the ex Navy SEALs because the Navy said, "Hey, we need more Navy SEALs to do more good in the world." And they came back and they found that there's only two things that all the Navy SEALs have in common. And the first one is compassion for your fellow man, and the second one is mastering the breath work. And the reason why is because both of those things turn your brain off. And that's why I think we procrastinate because when our brain starts telling us to stop doing this or I could be doing something else, and it literally will stop us from doing what we're doing. And the Navy SEALs experience the same thing when they're in the second week of hell. They're working out, 10 hours a day, and they're little bit of food and very little sleep, and their body says their mind starts to tell them, I gotta quit. This is miserable. I don't want to. Those are the ones who don't make it through the Navy SEALs. The ones who are able to turn their mind off and just keep going on the mission are the ones that are able to make it to the end. And so I think that is a major component in procrastination is just negative self-talk and not being able to control the negativity in our brain that maybe wants to redirect us. Maybe want to tell us to sit on the couch or do something else that's a little more uh, enjoyable for our brain in that moment.
Thank you for sharing that. I like that. So you have breath work. Is there anything else that you add into your sort of secret sauce to overcoming procrastination?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a 10-week program, and the first 3 weeks are basically learning to how to take control of the mind. And so week one is bringing your attention into the present moment. And so I introduce a handful of tools, including the box breathing that the Navy SEALs use, which is by far the most powerful. But once they learn how to bring their attention into the present moment, anxiety and depression are gone in the present moment. You and I are sitting here right now, Chris, and we're not thinking about the future. We're not thinking about the past. So we feel great. But we might wake up in the morning and feel horrible because our brain is taking us to one of those places. But when we teach somebody how to come into the present moment, all of that stuff kind of dissolves. And so when you the program that I teach teaches people how to do that, and then in week two we teach them how to get separation between them and their thoughts. And so you sit in that witness seat and you witness your thoughts versus engaging with them. And then in week three you start taking from that witness seat, you start taking negative thoughts and turning them into positive ones manually. But there's some exercises to kind of teach you through it. So by the end of the week three, people are able to process all the negativity in their brain. They start to become hypersensitive to negativity in their thoughts. And then they catch it and they go, oh, wait a minute. I'm waking up right this morning and I'm going, I'm going to have a horrible day. This sucks. I don't want to go to work. And they go, no, wait a minute. Those aren't my thoughts. Those I can take control of this. I can flip that around. I'm going to have a great day. Let's go. I'm going to have a good day. And then all of a sudden it leads to positivity. So in the first 3 weeks, they're manually shifting their brain out of the fear bucket into the love bucket, is the way that I take it. But basically shifting from negative to positive. And at the end of that third week, they're not only hypersensitive to negativity within them, but then they become hypersensitive to it around them. So, like if their coworkers are negative or their friends are negative, they start to become sensitive to that, and they actually have to make difficult decisions and have difficult conversations with friends, family, your spouse, whoever that's bringing negativity into their world. Because all that negativity will put you in cortisol and it'll drag you down. So if you're trying to do something and be productive in your life, there's no way you're going to be procrastinating on a daily basis because that negativity is going to lock you down. Your goal is going to get derailed by all the negativity. But if you can shift and turn off all that cortisol that gets created with the negativity, and you can shift it over into oxytocin, well, now you're in a love drug, and you're induced happy because your thoughts are positive. Now all of a sudden, if you're wanting to get up and go run or something, like there's nothing stopping me from getting up and going to exercise because you're positive, you're happy, you're in a great state of mind. And so if people learn how to manually shift themselves out of that fear bucket and get yourself into the positivity and what I call love bucket, you're chemically shifting chemicals in your head that's now moving you into a place where you can be more productive and you can start to get things done. And then the program, as it moves forward, the next couple of weeks are really going inward and having a perspective shift, learning how to love yourself, learning what it means to actually love yourself. We all, for the most part, most people, like, they really care about their friends, their family. They're going to go out of bounds for them, but they're not going to do those things for themselves. And so we kind of go through some exercises to kind of reframe what it means to love yourself and if you're actually doing that or not. Gives them a kind of a perspective change. And then the last 3 weeks of the program, like week 6 through 8, you really start to just go back in the past and heal from the stuff that is causing those negative thoughts to just show up in your brain to begin with. And the first part of that is, anything that we're attached to is a source of pain. If I was to be told that I'm a crappy COO of this company that I work for, then it would hit me because I'm attached to it. But if I take that attachment off and I don't identify as a COO, it doesn't hurt me. If somebody calls me a crappy attorney, well, I'd laugh, right? It doesn't bother me. Our subconscious mind will protect our identity the same way it protects our physical body. And so it creates this environment where we're constantly trying to protect from everything because we're comparing ourselves to everything and we're identifying with these things. And week 6 of my program, we really try to just show people that you're far more than a dad. You're far more than whatever your job title is. And we teach them simple little thing to remove things from your Christmas tree, ornaments from your Christmas tree, so you can just be Chris. And you don't have to identify with all these things that if something in your environment was to make you feel attacked, it wouldn't have that horrible feeling in the pit of your stomach. And it happens to all of us because we all do this. But if you can narrow that down and take these attachments off, life just gets freer. And then week 7, we learn how to forgive ourselves and others. And that's a heavy lift for a lot of folks. But now we have all these tools and we're working towards this. And then in week 8, it is the reason this or built this program. And that's where you can go back to when you were 5 years old and you got yourself in an elevated emotional state, and you were left feeling one of 4 things. You were left feeling ugly, stupid, unlovable, or unworthy. And you can go back and reframe an elevated emotion with compassion, love, and forgiveness, and it'll make it go away. So, for example, let's say, like, this is an example that happened to me. When I was in kindergarten, I had a learning disability. And I couldn't learn. I learned how to read when I was 25 years old. And the first time that I realized that I was different than the other kids was in kindergarten. And all the other kids were spelling their name, and my teacher kept getting really frustrated because I couldn't. And so she changed my name from Michael to Mike. And when she did it, she was frustrated and she was kind of pissy with me. And that's what made me start paying attention. And I got into an elevated state. I was left feeling stupid, less than the rest of the kids. And that programmed my subconscious mind with a feeling of stupid because I got into an elevated emotional state, which opens up the subconscious mind. And then I got programmed with I'm stupid. Well, to play this on out. So I live all the way to 48 years old with this, right? And whenever I would come into situations, I would constantly feel less than. I would feel stupid in a lot of different situations. Even though I kind of overcame learning how to read when I was in my mid 20s, I still had those lingering feelings. And so here's the curse and the blessing with this is everything happens in the present moment. The gift with that is it's still the present moment. So even that though that happened to me when I was 5 years old in kindergarten, I can go back right now with my imagination and go back to that exact moment, reframe that entire situation with compassion, love, and forgiveness. I could forgive that teacher. I could forgive myself for not understanding it, not giving myself the wisdom that I needed at that time. Reframe it with compassion, love, and forgiveness. And now all of a sudden, my subconscious mind won't hold on to it as a threat to my ego anymore, and it'll just put it over here. And the reason the subconscious mind does that is let's imagine, Chris, that there's a 2-year-old walking along the edge of the pool. 2-year-old falls in. Okay. 2-year-old almost drowns. Somebody grabs it, picks it up. This 2-year-old is startled. The subconscious mind is designed to hold on to fearful memories to protect us, to keep us alive. The problem is, like where I was talking about the decorations on our Christmas tree, this subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between something I identify with and something that is real, like my body. So it doesn't know the difference between putting a gun to my head and calling me stupid because I couldn't read when I was a kid. It treats them the same way. So it holds on to that same memory in the same fashion. The beautiful gift about it is we get to go back and rewrite these memories. I learned how to do this about 6 years ago. I started going to an energy therapist. And he was taking me back, and there's 3 different forms that he uses, but it started with a heal and release. He would go back to a specific topic, and then he taught me how to do internal family systems. And this is not new to the world. This is stuff that the Buddhists have been doing for 2,500 years. And now a lot of therapists are transitioning their practices over to this type of stuff. And that's what Chris Hancock did, the guy that taught me how to do this. When I started going to this and the first time it happened, it was just like this liberating feeling. And it's like you felt free of whatever it was. And then about a week or two later, it would all kind of life would go back to normal and all the anxiety of life would come up and it would happen. So it became the cycle. And after I got about 20 of these old core beliefs rewritten, I just looked at my life and I was like, holy moly, I'm different now. Like life is just different. It's not as hard. I told myself at some point I was going to quiet my mind by any means necessary because, Chris, I was miserable. All the way up to 45 years old, I was miserable. And I had kids and I had a wife and I wanted to meet my obligations to them, but I didn't care if I lived past a certain point when those kids were taken care of. And now I cherish every moment. And it's not because I have kids. I cherish it because I enjoy every breath that I take. I enjoy the air in my lungs. It feels wonderful. I could sit in this chair and just be blissfully happy all day long. And I didn't have any idea that this was possible. And for me, learning how to bring my attention into the present moment where peace is found was the cornerstone, where it started. But then your brain is going to pull you out of it into the future where anxiety is and pull you into the past. But when you're able to start taking things off of your Christmas tree, you're able to forgive yourself and others. And I mean, immediately learn how to do it in real time. So when somebody cuts you off in traffic, it's, I forgive you immediately. I hope you're well. Come up with a phrase to just forgive them on the way home. So you immediately you stay in that peaceful, calm place, and then being able to go back to those old core beliefs that are literally running our lives unbeknownst to us. Like we're still responding to all of those things that happened to us when we were little because it happened in the present moment and it's still the present moment. The subconscious mind has no concept of time. And so as I started clearing out some of these things, my life just changed. And I started having being very sensitive to energy. Like I started using crystals in my hand because I can feel the energy in my hand. And when I felt the energy in my hand, it would quiet my mind, you know? And then when my mind would be quiet, I would be peaceful. And then of course I'd stop focusing on my hand and then, here comes all the noise again. And so that's kind of the journey of this program and kind of my life. And there's a lot more to be said about all of it. But at the end of the day, I've now probably done well over 150 core beliefs, and it's liberating. I didn't think it was possible to live the way that I'm living right now. And somewhere along the way, when I started healing from all of my stuff, I started looking around. And whenever I would see somebody excited, or I would see somebody saying something negative, or I can know where it's all coming from. You dig enough stuff out of your own shed, you start to identify with what's in everybody else's shed. And at first it made me really sad, but then I realized, okay, these are all lessons that everybody's got to learn, just like I got to learn, because I'm still getting rid of core beliefs. I think I've done two in the last week myself, so I'm not done with my journey. I'm still on it. But what it's done is it's allowed it's basically pointed me in a direction where I just want to share this with the world. And I'm grateful for you today, right now, for helping me spread this message that we can live a different life by simply following some very basic steps on how to take control of our mind, because most of us have no idea that it's even possible. We just surrender to it. Most people don't even realize that we're not even our thoughts. We are the witness of our thoughts. Our thoughts are coming from somewhere else. So that's kind of sums up the journey and kind of what the program is, but it relates really well to your program and procrastination, because all this procrastination, in my opinion, is just negative thoughts that get in the way of positive.
Thank you for sharing that. And it's true. But we had a little bit of a discussion in the green room before too, right? About you said you were feeling sad walking around the world sometimes and seeing people
Yeah,
that were upset. But I actually got this out of a comedy movie, but it was so profound and it was just so well placed. It was just I couldn't understand. I couldn't fathom why it was in there. It's an Asteroid City. It's a new movie. It's a newer movie with Steve Carell, and they're waiting for this meteorite, and this alien comes down, and it goes to this meteorite, and it's this song in the middle of nothing that has a message that's so profound that it's insane to think they put that in the movie. And as the alien's coming down, there's a song playing in the background, and it comes down, and the alien sort of looks at him as he's picking up this meteorite to take it back up. And the repeating chorus is, "You can't wake up if you don't go to sleep."
yeah,
So, why are we unable to see that? I mean, we have to be asleep before we can be awake.
yeah. And that is 100% true. And with how I am right now in my life, I feel like I'm shifting in and out of awake and asleep all the time. I'm getting healthy, but I'm so awake for half of my day, and the other half I'm still asleep. So I'm fighting the good fight, and I'm feel like every day I'm pushing closer to being awake more and more. And you're right, folks are asleep, and sometimes it takes heartache and pain to wake them up.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes it does.
Yeah,
Also, I love how you mentioned compassion in your program and um, compassion towards yourself for what you knew and what you didn't know, right? Because
yeah,
everybody does the best that they can with the information they have on hand. Nobody says, "Oh, I know this. I'm going to go out and do the worst thing possible to hurt myself the most." Nobody does that.
yeah. No, nobody does. And one of the things that, is huge for everyone, when you forgive yourself and you forgive others, it's such a powerful, liberating thing, right? And that you have to incorporate that into rewriting old core beliefs, or it just doesn't work. You can't go back and try to rewrite one and not forgive the person or the person or yourself that's kind of wronged you and created that scenario. If there's no forgiveness, you're not rewriting anything. It's going to stay there. It's not going to work. And one of the beautiful parts about that is, and I kind of borrowed a phrase from Jesus, and I borrowed another one, or I kind of created another one on my own. But people in pain, they cause pain, and that's basically what you're saying there just a second ago. Is, you know, people are floating around and they don't realize what they're doing because they're almost asleep. They're kind of stumbling around and they just don't have information. They aren't doing it on purpose. They're in pain. And so when you're in pain, people typically are going to cause pain. That's the source of them causing. That's the root cause. And so there's two things that I basically have people say as they're going through these exercises to truly feel. And it's these two sentences basically allows you to forgive anything, and it makes it very easy. And it's real simple: is, hey, I forgive them because people in pain, they cause pain, and I forgive them for they know not what they've done. They Because they don't. They're sleepwalking, like you said. They're asleep and they don't realize what they're truly doing. They don't know what the damage truly is. So when you combine those two phrases, it really makes it pretty powerful to be able to heal almost any situation. Like, I've not run into one where somebody was unable to forgive without, by using those two phrases. They just have to mean it and have the effort behind that, and then gets them to the finish line.
Yeah, forgiveness is something that's interesting and near and dear to me because it is such a cloudy subject sometimes. The way that I've heard it described sometimes is that when you're not able to forgive, it's some sort of it's got its basis in fear somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Generally fear of being hurt, right? So if we're just being taking it down to brass tacks and oversimplifying everything, I can't forgive that person for doing that because I'm probably afraid that they're going to do something similar again, or that it's going to hurt me again, or something like that. Is that sort of the general idea?
So here's the two things. So I've learned a lot from yogis and just getting a lot of different information from out of the Buddhist world, right? And there's a lot of yogis out there that are teaching, and I get a lot of information. And I've heard two things, and I believe one of the two is true. I think, there's a knowing. You know that you're having a podcast right now, but then there's beliefs, right? And beliefs are what you think. So there's a clear distinction. I believe it's one of these two, but I know it's one of those because of my experiences. So here's one of the two options. Either the subconscious mind has no concept of anybody else in the world. So if you're spreading hate and you're not forgiving somebody else, it's really you that you're looking at. So it's the same thing with negativity. If you say something negative about anyone, you're going to feel bad after you say it. And most people don't have that awareness of it. But when we speak negativity into the world, we're left feeling bad. The same way as if somebody comes around us and they're talking negative, if you absorb that and engage in it in any way, shape, or form, you're going to leave and you're going to feel bad. I think it's the same way with forgiveness. If you're able to forgive that other person, it relieves you of the burden of what they've caused. Because when you're holding on it, you're casting that into the darkness. You're casting that person into the darkness, and that's judgment. And when you're doing that, it's pulling you down with you. That's one scenario. The other scenario, and this is the one I believe that we're all connected. And if you're casting somebody else into thing, if the essence of God is in everything, then you or I are connected. And I could say I'm looking out the window here and there's a tree. And if you look at the picture and the structure of a tree, it looks like a set of lungs. Well, if I'm inhaling what that tree is exhaling, and that tree is inhaling what I'm exhaling, then that tree is an extension of my lungs. Well, it's also the extension of yours. So we are connected by that life force that is really like this. When you start to look at it, it's just it's almost overwhelmingly obvious that we're all connected. In the way that my body is responding to the world, I'm starting to feel it. I'm starting to physically feel it, and it's becoming a knowing that we're all connected. And so, if you take that perspective, if we're all connected, and you've done something to me and I don't forgive you, I'm not forgiving myself because we're connected. The essence of God, when folks bow, the Asian cultures and martial arts, they're saying the essence of God in me is honored to be in the presence of the essence of God in you. And when you look in somebody's eyes and you say that, there's a connection that starts to happen that's not between the two individuals, it's something bigger. And you can physically feel it. The mind will calm down and there becomes a connection between the two. And it's something spiritual and it's powerful. I've helped folks with sports anxieties, especially in like combat type stuff like wrestling. And when they go out to the matches, some of these kids will freak out when they have to go introduce themselves because they have to go shake hands. And so for the next 30 minutes until they do that match, they're freaking out, whatever. But if they'll simply do that, it quiets the mind and it separates things. But to go back to the topic, if we're all connected and I'm not forgiving you for something you did to me, I'm punishing me. I'm not forgiving me because we're all connected. So it's one or the other, but I physically know from experience, if I don't forgive, then I will have a physical response. If I say something negative about somebody, regardless of who it is or what they've done, like I had to start using words like that's unfortunate instead of that sucks or that person's bad or whatever. Like the good and bad, I had to stop using it because I started to feel a physical response in my body as a result of saying anything negative. So to me, it's becoming a belief and a knowing that either the subconscious mind only recognizes one person in the world because it's just a computer, right? It's a supercomputer that's here and you were programming it. So how could it have an understanding of what else is going on? So as you casting something out into the world, it's basically sitting on you. Or we are literally telling our friends that, hey, this is bad or this is negative, but we're connected to them. So it's doing the same, it's having the same result with a one of two different philosophies. And I've heard yogis say that in two different ways and basically present that in two different ways. And to me, we're all connected.
No, I love how you bring that up, and it's interesting to me, and this is as far as I get into, because I've done a lot of research into, quantum mechanics and religion and alchemy, and actually, interestingly enough, what's funny is the lines between, science, religion, alchemy, mysticism. What's mind-boggling to me, and this is as far as I usually go on the subject, is that at the core, we're all saying the same thing. We're talking about the same things. We're just using different words and we're arguing over what words to use and we're arguing over who to attribute those words to.
I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah. To me, they're all saying the same thing. And I know I'm not trying to turn this into a religious conversation, but when I take Buddhism and I take Christianity and you overlay them, it's really similar. It's like, holy moly, they're saying the exact same thing. The difference, Buddhism, it's passed down from master to teacher. Master to teacher, there's no interpretation of a written word. And so when you take a written word, we're all going to have different interpretations of it. But to me, it's saying the same thing. If you want to find God, go inward. If you want to find the source, go inward. And that is literally how I have gone from depression and anxiety is 100% focused inward. And, for about 3 years, I was meditating 2, 3 hours a day and I was consuming about 20 books a month and just had a thirst for knowledge of the world and of myself. And becoming very familiar with my energies, it's been an amazing thing. And so now I could feel other people's energies when I'm around them. I could tell when they're up. I can tell when they're down. I can tell when they're with me if they're having an emotional shift. Um, I'm getting even more and more and more in tune with that to where it's not just for the longest time, it was within 12 feet. If you were within 12 feet of me, I could feel it. And it started out very sensitive with just very few people like my boss or my wife, but now it's literally anybody. But now it's starting to spread outside of that, and it's weird, and it's amazing all at the same time. But I truly believe we are all connected. And the more you go inside, the more you become aware of things. And so, like I got 7 chakras. We all have chakras in our thing. I could physically turn on all of mine. If I close my eyes, I could physically feel them, and I'll have to, try it. It'd take me about 30 or 40 seconds of calming my breath and an internal focus, and I could turn on my energy chakras. I pretty much live with my heart chakra opening. It's because it's my favorite one, and I just have an internal focus, and it's easy because that's where I'm breathing. And as soon as I turn an internal focus on it, it just lights up. Oh my gosh, Chris, it feels so amazing. If I could bottle it up and sell it, the world would just be a different place. But yeah, it's internal focus is literally where it's at, and that's preached in every religion on the.
No, it is, and it's interesting that this is coming up more too. And forgiveness is a major step. The other one was an interesting one to me, and I don't know if you cover this in your program. Expectations is one thing. So, managing expectations is one thing. So not, that part of non-attachment, non-resistance, non-judgment. The second part of it was really interesting to me, and I want to hear your take on it. And it's about approaching a person without an agenda.
So yeah, and so that's great that you say that because it's so I'm actually building a master class. I'm not there, but I feel like I've been manifesting and doing things in the world. And one of the things that has been a hindrance in my spiritual journey and my coaching part, like teaching this 10-week program, am I doing it for the person I'm trying to help? Or am I trying to get love and accolades from that person? If you approach somebody with unconditional love, the universe is going to give you all the love and rewards that you want. But if the ego gets in the way and you lead with selfish rewards, you're getting your reward in that moment. I basically have this little thing that I've asked, I don't know, a handful of folks to do, and you donate money to a homeless person. I'm gonna give $20 to one guy. I'm gonna give $20 to another. When you give $20 to the first guy, I want you to realize how it feels. The guy's happy, makes you feel good, and then the moment you tell somebody you did it, you just got your reward. That feeling that you felt when you gave it to them is going to be diminished. You're not going to feel the same internal buzz, gratefulness, happiness for that person. When you tell somebody that you did it, you're basically your ego saying, "Hey, look what I did. Look what I did. Aren't I awesome? Look how amazing I am for giving to this person." But when you do it again the second time and you don't tell anyone, it just resonates with you. You're doing it out of unconditional love. So back to your question, if you're going to approach somebody, you need to be able to approach somebody out of unconditional love. And so I started this program and I wasn't nearly as healed as I am now. And so at times I was battling that internally like, hey, I want you to do this. But part of my ego was jumping in the middle of it and saying, hey, I want you to do this because I want you to see how awesome I am. I want you to see how cool I am. But I've learned how damaging that is for me, and it gives ulterior motives for that person. So I'm less of a coach. I'm not helping people, and it's kind of stalling out my spiritual process. And it was a lesson that I had to learn. So I would say how to approach people without an agenda. It needs to be done with unconditional love, and the ego needs to be put in check, because it's so easy for us to do something out of unconditional love, and then the ego starts chirping at us and starts the unworthy stuff from when we were a kid. The 4 major things: the unworthy, stupid, unlovable, worthless. Those 4 things start screaming from our past because it happened in the present moment. It's still screaming right now. And it's going, hey, look what I did. I'm not unworthy. Look, I just gave that guy $20. You see what I did? And now all of a sudden it's not out of unconditional love anymore. You didn't give to the homeless person out of unconditional love. You gave because your ego was thinking. So now the universe has just given you your reward. Your reward is the accolades that you got from doing it. But if we don't do it and we do it out of unconditional love, the universe is going to reward you in ways that are unimaginable. But it has to be out of pure unconditional love.
I love that unconditional love, and I speaking on unconditional, I really love going into this because we always talk about unconditional love, but I like actually the first time I heard somebody talk about unconditional happiness was I believe the first time I read it was Michael Singer's Untethered Soul, and he was talking about unconditional happiness. Why do you think the ego has to put conditions on being happy?
I think it does is because the ego is what we would call a false self. It's not the true self. It's a made up thing, and I truly believe we're here to learn lessons, and the ego is an integral part of that. Right? Without it, we're not going to go. So I'm not going to say that it's anything negative because it's not. It's here to teach us lessons. I truly think that the ego, if we go back to the negative core beliefs portion of it, we have so many, and everybody has them. These are all universal, and so it's gonna constantly that ego is constantly tapping into that pain. It's why we get frustrated for no reason. Why most people can't just sit in a chair and be happy. It's because that stuff is getting them. Meditation or any type of internal focus will quiet the mind and allow anybody to just sit still. So that's why when people find things like extreme sports. You jump out of an airplane and you're so intensely in the present moment that you can't help but to be happy and have an enjoyable moment once you do. You might be scared before you jump, but when you're in it, it's like, holy moly, I've never been so in the present moment as that moment. Another one that I think people are doing, like pickleball is the fastest growing sport on the planet right now, right? Like it's just booming. Well, if you've ever played pickleball, you got to serve, it's got to bounce, and then they hit it back to you, and then it's got to bounce. And then it's like you're just face to face with people hitting this wiffle ball from 10 feet away, and it's just like, pat, 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 and you just get lost in the moment. And it's such an exhilarating 10 seconds, 20 seconds of living in the present moment that most people don't have the ability to get into. And so to go back to your original question is the ego is going to pull us out of the present moment. And so there's going to be all these thoughts in the future and thoughts in the past. And it's just that eternal happiness is not going to exist with thought. And the ego is going to constantly pull us into the future and into the past. And so, in order to find internal happiness or an eternal peace, whichever words we want to search for there, it's going to have to be found with no mind because it's going to be temporary. I listened to one monk, he talked about it, and he was holding his necklace. If I try to pull happiness to me and I get some of it, when I let go of it, it's going to swing the other way. It's just the nature of the way that would swing. That logic applies with happiness. Have you ever done something and it was amazing, but then you tried to recreate it the next week and it didn't never work out the same? It was like you were trying to smother it, and it was like you couldn't find it. That is the pendulum swinging. You found that happiness that day, and then it swung back to the other side. Happiness is almost an illusion, but peace is not. Peace and joy, in my opinion, is something different than happiness. Happiness has an opposite. Most everything that the ego experiences, that we experience, has an opposite. The only thing that doesn't is the love that comes out of the heart chakra, which I believe and most yogis believe is the source of God, the source of the universe, whichever word that people like to use, divine, God, universe, whatever that is, it's what we're all created by. It's what connects us all. That's the only thing. And that is the source of that is love. Like we all have an innate sense of right and wrong. We didn't have to learn not to punch somebody else in the face. Like we know that's wrong. Like there are some rare occasions out there where there might be a psychopath and whatever, but the general premise, even if you just look at trees in nature and the plants, they're fighting to survive. And in order to do that, we have to work symbolically together because the sun and the plants and the animals, it's like in the movie Lion King. Is why I probably like Rafiki so much because that movie shows the circle of life. The lion eats the antelope eats the grass. Like it's a symbol, the circle of life that it requires for all of us to live on this big rock together. It's beautiful. It's we're all feeding off of each other. We're all living off of each other. We're all sharing the same lungs. It's a pretty powerful. I know I'm going off on a bigger tangent here, but it's the world that we're living in is just way more bigger, and it's way more than what most people experience in their own perception. But when we close our eyes and we go inward and that mind turns off, it's amazing what we can get connected.
That's so profound. Mike, this has been a great conversation. I could probably go on about the subject for hours because I could dig into
I
all
could
the
too.
different
This is
all the
fun.
different places. But our audience wouldn't like that for sure. We are coming up pretty close to the time.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you wish I would have asked but I didn't ask, or anything that you feel we should have covered? But we
No. I just my goal here is to get my program out to the world, so hopefully folks can find the same peace as I do. So, learntolovebeing.you.com is how you can find it. If you can't afford it, please just email me at Mike at learn, love, being you, and I'll work with anybody who can't afford the program. But yeah, that's it, Chris. I appreciate your insight. I appreciate your perspective on what I'm doing in life, and you're a very interesting man, and I've really enjoyed our conversation.
thank you so much for being here, Mike. Just before we go, though,
Yeah.
besides the website, are there any socials or anywhere else we can get in touch if we have questions besides the
This
email?
is all. Yes, so I've got accounts right now. They're very new, they're very fresh. I've got a lot of promotional videos that I've been filming. So I got a lot of folks that have gone through the program that are speaking about it. They're all recorded, and they're all going to start getting posted. My TikTok, my personal TikTok is where most of that has been put right now. But over the next week, they're going to be on Learn to Love Being You. All those sites are already up. Learn to Love Being You on X. Let's see, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. So I'm going to be on all the major sites. You'll be able to get to me in any one of those sites. All of those have a link to the website on all of those. And you'll get to start seeing some of the testimonials, and website's going to get improved. It's only been up for a week or two. So I'm just shifting from the building phase into the marketing phase of this whole thing, and super excited.
Thank you so much for sharing those. And to all our listeners, don't worry about grabbing a paper and pen. We are going to have that in the show notes for you, so it's easy to find. And once again, Mike, thank you so much for being here. And to all our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And just remember, if you can't find that motivation or inspiration for yourself today, maybe just go out, try to be that motivation and inspiration for someone else. And we'll see you again next time.